I'm going to talk to you about Merlin and dragons and the Glastonbury Tor and the largest stone circle in Avebury, England. This was part of my recent trip to go to Glastonbury, do some energy work, go to Avebury, and find my dragon. What? That's what I thought at first, and it wasn't always clear from the beginning. I'm Mark Jacobs. If you're not familiar with my work, you can go to my website, markofthesoul.com. And I would really love it if you would subscribe to my channel below. So the call came last November 2025 to go to Glastonbury. It came through my higher self. It came from my guides, the collective, who I channel on a regular basis, also here on YouTube. And the call was, you are being asked to do some energy work on top of Glastonbury Tor. I'd never heard of Glastonbury. I didn't know what a Tor was. And I really didn't know what energy work was in the way that it was being implied. Grid work. I asked about how I was supposed to do that, what I was supposed to do, what does this mean? And the answer I got, which still resonates for me very deeply, is your presence is enough. Isn't that true about wherever we find ourselves? Your presence is enough. Okay. Over time, I learned to trust that your presence is enough. And over time, I got a little bit more information about how I might approach this task. I also got the message that I may be traveling with someone or be open to it. And as it turned out, my friend, who's a grid worker, Amber Ocasio, you can find her, the link to her website in the show notes below. She was also called to go to Glastonbury, and it was at the same time, early March. You can't make it up. So I set out to just listen, to be with this call. I read some about Avalon, which is where Glastonbury is. The energy of Avalon, the energy lines, the ley lines of Avalon, the all the stories that go with it, the region, all that's transpired there. Obviously, I didn't get to everything, but I just sort of dived in where I felt called to learn more about the place I was being asked to go to. And in the week leading up to departure, all this energy, all this learning, all this understanding, all this additional information that had come to me about what I was going to be doing on this trip, including a trip to Avebury, working with the Ley Line between Glastonbury and Avebury, all began to coalesce. I could feel it just swirling and tightening like the center of a hurricane, but I was quite calm about it. It was all just coming together. And so we departed. And when we arrived in Glastonbury and we were being driven from the train station, it's when I saw the Tor for the first time. The hill is much higher than I anticipated. The ruin of St. Michael's Church is up there. The grass is so green. There's ancient vines and groves all around. It was very special. It had an energy for sure. A lot of different kinds of energies, as we would come to find out. And so that first trip up to Glastonbury Tor, that next morning, it was early. We went up the back side, what I would call the back side, through the groves, through the grove. And there was a bit of a darker energy there. Bit of a darker energy. I wasn't really concerned about it, but it definitely carried that side of the tour and on the climb up. It dissipated, but at some point, um, I was activated to get to the top. I wanted to see the spot that I had walked along, guarded perhaps, um, back in the times when I was a druid there. Now, this energy, once I got to the top, really just sort of exploded. There was a gong happening. You'll see, actually, I just posted a 40-second soul reset video that is the gong being played in a 360-degree view of the tour. And the gong was there, the ruin was there. There were just a very few people because it was early. And the vista is absolutely phenomenal. But there was mist, like the mists of Avalon. And that's where I began to move inward into myself. I began feeling the land underneath my feet. I began coming out of my body, some, remembering to root into the Tor itself. There's a heavy energy up there. There's also a joyful energy up there, but it's a place where healing occurs, where the frequency of the place still moves throughout the valley, throughout the lands below where Glastonbury and others reside. Now, my work was to work with the St. Michael Ley Line, which is an energy line that connects or runs through the Tor and connects with Avebury. Now, when I got this guidance, I really hadn't read a lot about ley lines, the energy grid that moves in the earth and around the earth and into the cosmos. We're all on a grid. We're subjected to an energetic grid. And this ley line, the Michael line, is particularly potent. There's a lot that rests on it. And people, the ancient people who built on this line, knew of its energy. And it's no accident that major sacred sites are lined up on this line. The Tor is one of them. Avebury Stone Circle, which is the largest stone circle in the world, is one of them. And my work began with my guides working to further activate the ley line, the Michael Ley Line. All I have to do is show up, go to where I was guided, which was the top of the Tor, on the ley line, and face Avebury. Now, I bought a compass. I bought a book to take notes. I read about Avalon, and I read about the stories of the Tor. And none of that mattered once I got up there. I believe it did create a foundation, but none of it really mattered. And once I got up there, and Amber had already discovered a permanent compass that's up there that also has a point directly towards Avebury, so I didn't need my compass, but I didn't know that. I did need it later when I got to Avebury. And so I began my work. It was facing Avebury at its point, and I simply went inward. My hands began to move. There were some motions like this. There was light happening through me. There was light coming through me and out. There was presence. Remembering your presence is enough. Indeed, we are enough as we are. Amber was doing some crystal grid work on the compass. There was a red rose that had been left for us already. I felt and I saw with my third eye the energy line light up, and I stayed with it for as long as I felt was important to do so, and came back out of it. Now, the tour after that held all sorts of other fascinations. Dragon egg. Amber went to find that. The path down was entirely different energy. I love passing the 92-year-old man who was walking up the Tor for the umpteenth time. He had a lot to say about the dragon eggs inside the Tor, and the sacred waters underneath the Tor I could feel, or flowing through the Tor I could feel, were present. And that was the second message, or the expanded message that I got for going to Glastonbury, was being in the sacred waters. After the Tor, we're moving on to the White Spring, which is a sacred well. They call it the White Spring because it's limestone. Its channels are filled with limestone, and so it leaves a chalky deposit wherever it flows. There's the Chalice Well, which is the red spring because its channels are filled with iron, and so it leaves red deposits wherever it flows. Now, the White Spring is in ancient waters, still flowing. You can drink from the White Spring. The temple has been desecrated. It continues to be desecrated. It is there that I was guided to our Northwest Light Group created scrolls and blessings wrapped in golden red ribbon, and I was asked to bring those by my guides, to bring those as blessings for the sacred waters. Now, I didn't know where the sacred waters were going to be. I didn't know which sacred waters. I didn't know where the blessings were going to go. But as soon as I saw this alcove, this sort of structure that was created to honor the White Spring, perhaps return her to her reverent nature, or return reverence to her, because we are the ones who are in a state of reverence for these sacred waters. There was a perfect rose branch next to a fertility goddess, and I just tied each of our blessings, 5 in all, right there. It was a moment where I knew that we had made an imprint. An imprint. Now, all this was happening in the course of a morning, and I wasn't trying to integrate anything. I was simply walking my path as laid out for me. And what I realized later was, and this became a common theme, was I was following the energy. And the secondary message was trust yourself. Trust the process and trust yourself. You don't need to know what you're doing, how you're doing it, or what the outcome is. That's not important. That's not important to just being and bringing my presence. That's the most important, is that I trust myself to follow the process as guided for me in a way that feels resonant for me, authentic for me. Does this feel right? And so walking up the Tor, walking down the Tor, doing our thing, my thing on the Tor, revisiting and reacquainting myself with the lands that surround the Tor, feeling into the waters that are all underneath there, the mist as it came down, feeling the ground beneath my feet, the roots of my lineage there, coming down and seeing the White Spring, hearing the White Spring, still moving and running underneath the earth, placing our blessings there so that the sacred water might return to a place, might continue to heal, and that reverence might be returned to her. by us humans, was just a fascinating journey just for the morning. And the rest of the day, of that first day, was all about the divine feminine, which the waters, the sacred waters as they flow through, is really leading us to the divine feminine as the sacral chakra, which is the swirling of the waters, the divine feminine, the womb, the rebirth, the gestation happening. And so we went to the Magdalene Chapel next, where we discovered in earnest the divine feminine symbolism. Mary Magdalene, a small chapel there, drew us in, and others followed. They seemed to match our reverence and respect for the place, our permission that we asked to be there was granted. And so at the Magdalene Chapel, we sat in stillness, where a man in a wheelchair came in. He was unable to speak, it seemed. He had caretakers, but he zeroed in on the Magdalene, red in her hood, votives in front of her, a little altar to her, and the whole energy of the chapel changed. He, the man in the wheelchair, was the power. I'm going to say that again. Mary Magdalene was the power. The man in the wheelchair was a conduit of light. That's how I would describe him. And we felt that light. I felt that light. And I felt the stillness and the reverence and the respect. And so we allowed the moment. He wasn't there for long. And he left, and Amber and I knelt before the Magdalene. And she began to place rose petals around. I wasn't counting them, and she said later that she was not counting them. And she ended up placing 12. And I had already said that those represented the 12 forgotten apostles of Yeshua. They remember the male apostles, but not the female apostles. The divine feminine has been suppressed and oppressed, but it is now being resurrected. It's everywhere in Glastonbury. You can see that. And you can see it in imagery, iconography, signs that show up in windows. You can see it in the colors of red and white. You can see it wanting to emerge. It's easy there, but I see it elsewhere. I see it around our world. The divine feminine is seeking to emerge. And what's most important, though, is that the divine feminine is seeking balance. Balance with aspects of the masculine and aspects of the feminine in harmony with each other. And we're the only ones, humans are the only ones who assign gender to anything. So it's all aspects of who we are. All that is in between masculine and feminine, all that is beyond masculine and feminine, all aspects of who we are, bring them in harmony with one another so that we may be unified, whole, and complete. We may experience a consciousness of unity and oneness, balance, harmony. Now, is this enough? Is this enough for day one? Yes. Yes, it was enough. But the day did continue. And Merlin's wand, which, I have right here, which was activated. This was a gift from Amber. On the way up the Tor, I had it in my backpack. I could feel it go, bing. activated. And it continued to delight me the whole trip, as you will see in those videos if you choose to watch them. Merlin magic and 6 seconds of medieval mischief and all kinds of fun that I had with this wand, embracing my Merlin lineage as an oracle. I'm not saying necessarily that I was Merlin at any one point, but the oracle lineage, the Druid lineage. Merlin was an archdruid. The magic, the intention of using a wand to focus your attention, to focus your desire, to focus your magic and your power. Now, I didn't know that I was going to find out more about dragons or dragon energy. But I found my dragon in Avebury, which I'll talk about in the second video to this one. This one, I wanted to introduce the element of air and ether, the call to come to Glastonbury, answered. Follow the energy is the message. Be true to yourself, the message. That became water, the next element, the divine feminine, the sacred waters flowing throughout the Tor, the blessings that we left behind to continue to heal the sacred waters there. That's our intention anyway. And we move into earth, the stones, the land, the ley lines within the land, the dragon of Avebury. And then we move into fire in the next video, which is about the power of the dragon that resides within each one of us. We each have our own dragon. All right, I'm delighted that you have been with me. If you want to read more in-depth, having more in-depth experience about this, I have written my Glastonbury journals, parts 1 through 4. Part 1 and 2 are up on my Substack, Many Paths Connected. You can also find that Substack on my website, markofthesoul.com. I will leave it in the show notes below as a link. Thank you for joining me on the first part of our journey, remembering and experiencing Glastonbury, its energy, and the divine feminine grace that is woven throughout the land. All right, see you next time. Bye for now.